at sites and pick this as an optimal solution prior to getting it in foreclosure.
Yeah, I can say that the county planning and permitting department conducted a heat map study of all the activity of this type of use in the county, and it was almost smack dab.
Can we get a copy of that?
Is my property in that too? Am I at risk?
It was all the use in the county in terms of where the best place to locate the facility.
I see.
Yeah, it was pretty much.
Can we get a copy of that sent around?
From it within the records of the purchase, I'd imagine. Yeah, that heat map would be within the original
It
records.
would be in the feasibility study.
Yeah, so we'll get
So
you.
that could go
All
around.
that is open record. We'll get you.
Great.
You know what's frustrating though is that we farm, and we've been here for this family's been here for generations. We've got farmland that, as a farmer or as just a landowner with a farm, you go to the county with the intentions of, you know what, this family's been in our family for years. We don't want to see it developed. We're gonna go ahead and we call it making the deal with the devil. We're gonna get a conservation easement, so at least we can look back 50 years and it's still a farm. And for the most part, that's happened. But I know back in the 80s when I started seeing all the conservation easements roll through, you know, a lot of people were like, careful, careful. I'm like, you know, this is probably a really good deal. We're gonna keep everything in open space. We're not gonna have another, you know, really or whatever. It's gonna look great. But as time goes on, and I started seeing more and more of those conservation easements roll through and deeds roll through, and Boulder County flipping farms, and kind of they became their own developer. And that's what's happened is we have sold our souls and allowed you guys to come in and buy the developmental rights only, but in most cases you do buy an interest in the water. You then, when you take title to the properties, you pretty much do whatever you want. And I think that's not right, it's not fair, because when we have sold that to you, yes, we've been compensated for it, but it's also with the understanding, as me as a taxpayer, also me as a seller selling my farm, that by God it's going to stay as a farm. And that's exactly why we bought our house, because all of it was open space. But now we bought our house, and now we're like, well, crap.
Next to a dump.
We're next, and that's exactly right. And it's like, you know what? This is not why we bought that. And we too bought our house on a conservation easement, but we thought that this whole thing would stay as a farm, and that's not exactly what's happened. And you can't tell me that if this doesn't really take off and go, that you're not going to be looking at that right to the north of that, or maybe to the west. You guys can't make us that guarantee. And you know what? That's BS, because it's with our money that this has all happened. And I just really feel like this is wrong.
So I do appreciate that. I appreciate your perspective. And yes, living next door to a change that's going to happen, that might happen on a neighboring property, would be very concerning to any of you neighbors. I completely understand that.
You make it sound like it's changing though from a field to a playground.
Yeah. What I was going to say, no, and I agree. This is definitely a change in use.
This is an industrial scale waste facility.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not, we're not talking about, you know, oh, we're going to allow some light RL1 type changement or a transfer station for limbs. I mean, this is, have any of you three been to a facility of this scale and seen it in operation? Have you?
No, I've seen Bob's facility though.
Okay.
I've not been on it.
You have, right? Have you?
No.
Okay. That's
But
telling.
what I'm going to speak to is Sherry's point too about county purchasing a conservation easement and then changing it to something else. I've worked for the county for 21 years. I have never seen us purchase a conservation easement and turn around and use it for high-rise development.
I would rather a high-rise development.
Yeah. You're talking about it.
And I appreciate that too. But I feel the county has definitely used taxpayers' money for purchasing open space for exactly what the county residents have approved it for.
But your own feasibility studies say that this is not needed. The 2014 study absolutely concludes that you should not build a compost facility. How do you get past that? I mean, if you're looking at the greater good, that was the assessment of the greater good. And the assessment of what's in the interest of the county was that you should not build a facility.
I'm not sure what study you're referring to, but it could have been done when Western Disposal's compost processing facility was still open.
There's a 2014 study and there's a 2019 study. The 2014 study is on your website. The 2019 study is on the EPA website. It should be moved over to your website.
We'll definitely look at that. But I'm sure it took into account Western Disposal processing compost at that
In
time.
2019, they had stopped.
Yeah.
So the 2019 study already acknowledges that Western Disposal is not providing that service.
Okay. I haven't seen that. I'll definitely look it up. Thank you.
And again, I would argue that this is really agricultural use. You might coin it as such, but I'm sorry, Therese, I find that difficult to swallow. When the land is purchased through open space dollars for agricultural use, I have a hard time buying that this is really truly agricultural use, especially when you're profiting. I get you profit off of farmland, I get it, but I want to see the agricultural use defined.
And just to clarify, it's not going to be built for the purposes of a profit. That's not how the county runs its operations. I oversee the Boulder County Recycling Center. We don't run it for a profit. We just run it to break even, which is why we're the most affordable recycling center in the whole region for folks to recycle their material at. Right now, the cost of composting in this region is, no offense, Bob, but it's just not sustainable for anyone.
So you're going to charge people to come in and dump. You're charging them for the composting? Compost?
To buy the compost?
No, yeah.
Yeah, it will be for sale. Yes. Yeah.
So you're paying, they're going to have to pay to buy the compost. And they're also going to have to pay to dump the trash.
I didn't hear the last part of that.
People are going to have to pay to dump their shit here. And then they're going to have to pay to get the compost.
There will be a tip fee to drop your material.
See, there also
Some
be sales
portion
tax
of the
on this, which is
compost in the
profit.
rate analysis, some portion is allotted to give away for free, but then it has to subsidize the operation, so some of it will be charging for. There's also a large component of the project is working with the ag community in the region on carbon sequestration and regenerative soil projects. And so there will be a relationship with the ag community there as well.
Is there any discussion of flow control at the county level?
Well, the facility is being built to accept up to 50,000 tons a year.
Okay.
So that, that's our flow control for phase one. And if we ever even meet that, the recycling center was built for 50,000 tons a year with a phase two on piece of paper. We've been in operation over 20 years and have never had to expand.
Will the traffic study include 115? Does the traffic study include 115?
Only in Boulder County.
Traffic study includes
You'll be affected by the
It includes traffic in and out of the sites onto 287. That's it. That's what we're looking at, is how many trips per day to and from the site, going out to 287, coming in from 287.
Do you have any way to restrict traffic from coming down 115th and then coming up Lookout? Because if I'm a big semi coming all the way down 52 and then trying to turn in here isn't very appealing. I'd rather come down the dirt road, come up here, turn in, turn right. And like the gentleman before was saying, there's a lot of us that live right there.
So our county engineer, traffic engineers would look at that road and make sure that, if it cannot handle traffic truck like that, then they will block that off the trucks.
It's not just 115 ports, you look at a little piece of
Lookout
lookout
as
as well. And
Yeah.
there are a lot of homes there.
Are you
Some of those
seeing
people are not here tonight to
these
defend.
questions coming in from Weld or anything? You guys see any
I'm
large?
sorry?
You see any large trucks right now? I mean, I'm just curious as to what you
I
see
mean,
out
it's a
there.
2-lane, 35-mile-an-hour
Yeah,
road,
okay.
so it's not the.
But trucks do go down it if they're delivering dirt, gravel.
Yeah.
There are
Okay.
certainly trucks that go down there.
Okay, I'm just
Yeah.
curious.
A lot of ag trucks go.
It doesn't go all the way through, but they can take that, then hop right back up on 52 next.
Can
Right.
understand why that would be.
Yeah, so if you could expand, I don't know if you could consider expanding it to be, if you we've done some on 115 already, but Lookout Road, the impacts are going to be there, even if it's not the route it's chosen. There's going to be a lot more traffic on Lookout, which is a lot of horses, a lot of kids, and 115 certainly.
Our own community planning has a development review process that includes its own traffic analysis that would probably expand the regional traffic route to see where it would impact. If there were an overflow, if there were unused routes, that would be through our own CP&P for sure. So
When's the submittal for the site plan review?
October 12th.
Next week?
Excuse me?
So you're planning an operational loss, is that what I understand?
No, a break even.
Break even. If there is loss, who pays for the loss?
The county.
Out of
But
what funding source?
it would be the general fund, but I don't think that it would be approved if it was being proposed as a business with a loss.
There is the sales tax issue of the fees and the purchase of the compost. That's where your profit is. And for a facility of this type to be sustainable, it needs to crank through material on both on the incoming side and on the outgoing side. So we're not talking about me selling ice cream and collecting sales tax on it. We're talking about a lot of money here. And that is a profit-making operation for the county. That's not sweep that under the table.
But I think that is a big question. Is it a profit-making business for the county? Because you pointed out at the beginning of the meeting that you would like to be able to have a tax base to fund something like this. You've been in business for 20-something years, and you've never been able to scale this big to be profitable. Now we're going to buy this best-in-class material at a massive site run by somebody who's never run a recycle business in the past, and we expect to make money. If I were an investor, I'd walk away in a minute. I can't see, and like I said, I'll pay for tax dollars for open space. I'm not going to pay for tax dollars for a risky business. So how confident are we that this business is going to make money? What's the downside risk?
There was a feasibility study that was mentioned. It was different. The county conducted a feasibility study. We hired a consultant that did the operations analysis, the rate analysis that said...
But none of this has been out. We've never heard any of this. We've never heard anything about this planning.
Let's get it out. We'll find it.
You've already bought the land.
I think it's on the website.
You've already done the study, but this is the first anybody's heard about this. So we're this horse has left the barn.
Has anyone who's ever written a business plan looked back 5 years later and had that plan been accurate? I've written business plans. I've started businesses.
I just look at the upside downside risk. The upside downside risk is huge.
I'm curious if you could just on that too expand on, you made a comment about Western Disposal and how they weren't able to get permits to continue doing their composting facility. Was that something with Boulder County? Reason for not being able to get those permits?
It was a requirement from the state for them to dig a new containment pond and line it, and it was in order to renew their permit, and it was the cost of that expansion, kind of what Bob referred to earlier, of like it costs money to be able to keep the operation going. So it was that. I think it was like $1 million investment, if I remember correctly.
And the county looked at acquiring that property.
We had conversations with Western.
Did you also look at like just helping to pay for the additional work that
We
you
had
could be
a lot
doing?
of conversations about partnerships with them. We really enjoy working with them, and we have a good relationship, and it just didn't work.
I'd like to clarify one statement. When I made the statement about the tax basis, our facility handles 450,000 tons a year, not 50. My comment was based on the fact that I can't scope that large facility with this type of facility. I want to apologize if I gave an impression that somehow it's different economics.
So are you confident that, as a consultant, paid consultant for the county, do you feel it's a profitable venture for the county? Guaranteed?
I haven't. Guaranteed?
Guaranteed.
I have not looked at the depth of I've done business plans, and I know what it costs to operate certain facilities, and I know what products sell for, and why you have to have a tip fee and a sales price in order to sustain them. I could do that on my private thing. I have not looked at their numbers, but a 25,000 or 50,000 ton facility, currently the volumes are going to be probably.
So are you're the consultant for the process part, and you guys are the architects, right? So have you been asked to do any of the financial analysis on it?
Not to this point.
Okay.
Just to clarify, I'm sorry, knock on Victor's question, and again, I'm sorry, I can't hear well this far away, but was you guys going to run up the flagpole the idea of possibly selling that south portion to some consortium of neighbors for us to use as a guaranteed buffer? Is that something?
Work with the real estate agents at Parks and Open Space to begin with.
I think that's really a question for the county commissioners.
Yeah, they would be the ones.
I mean, they would be the ones to either say yes, they would consider it, or no, they would.
Would that fit in though with the plans as you envision them? Because that's not a big parcel on the south end. This is the biggest of it. Do you need that south end right there abutting Victor's and Lisa's? If there was some buffer there, since you're planning on having a buffer anyway, could you sell it to us? Could you consider it as viable for this project?
All I can speak to is our phase 1 plan doesn't take that into account.
But phase 2 does?
I mean, that's what's shown for the future.
Right. So there wouldn't be any more buffer there at that point.
Still buffer, just like we're showing you on the plan right now, in terms of trees and physical setback, still there.
Sequoias, redwoods.
May I ask what you do for the county again, please? I'm sorry, I didn't catch it back there.
What
is your job title?
Oh, I work for Boulder County Parks and Open Space. I'm the Natural Resource Manager.
Natural Resource Manager.
Yes.
We got time for one or two more here before they've asked. We have to be out here at 6.
Okay, I'd like just a little follow-up and some clarity. I'm trying to process basically, there's been a need identified or a desire identified to want to compost and zero the sequestration of carbon. I'm trying to make that jump and that leap from the county being a government to going into business. You made a comment earlier about how composting at this gentleman's facility is just way too expensive, or very expensive, and Boulder County probably has a vision of doing it cheaper with a possible taxpayers subsidy, at least initially, possibly. I'm trying to understand how we don't cross, how these things don't get crossed, how you go from being a county government or a government into the public sector or impacting the public sector. I understand, what I understand is the county doesn't have an expertise in this area, so you're going to hire a third party operator.
We don't know that yet.
Well, that was in the letter. That was a possibility. But I can't imagine somebody at the county just taking a venture this big on without having the resources
Darla's
to
done
do
a great
that.
job.
Well, anyhow, that's just one of my questions on how you're impacting the free market. So I know he's here. This gentleman's kind enough to be here and answer questions, but you're going to be competing with him.
True.
Or he may be running it for you. There's that part of it's not far enough down that road. But we're getting government into the marketplace, and we're saying because it's for the greater good. Is that what I'm trying to make that connection? I really don't know.
When it becomes into the business side of things, when it helps meet the major goals and objectives of the county, which is our Vision Zero, zero waste, Vision Zero cycling. On both of those. All of our comprehensive plan, land use, all those items, when we have to meet these larger goals that have been set by our commissioners and by our boards and commissions, and we need to start expanding on our normal day-to-day operations in order to meet them, and that's what we've been charged with. So we're looking into every opportunity to do that, and this is an opportunity. Again, it's not final, but this is a possibility to help us meet that zero waste by 2025 or darn near, and this would take us in a huge leap towards that.
And to take it a step further is identifying a property that was in a conservation easement where the county was supposed to be the steward of this property to keep it from being developed into a high-rise or whatever, but now is taking that and developing into an industrial size
Which is
facility.
very convenient for the traffic issues. Very convenient.
Yeah, we've been charged with trying to figure out ideas to meet these goals that have been set above us. And this was an idea. So here we are today to talk about it, and we'll keep talking about it. This isn't over by any means. We've said this is just the beginning, and we want to keep hearing. I want you to come to community planning. I want you to come to our land use processes, to the commissioners. Keep talking. I mean, keep letting us
I'd
know.
love to invite any and all of you to my property and come see my beautiful view that I have.
You sent me a picture, and it is fantastic, and I shared that with our entire team.
We took that picture and integrated it into the 3D view to make
Yeah,
and
so
planned
this
around
is-
that because I thought your view was so
You didn't show the big
Yeah,
dust
all have
consuming my
amazing
house.
value, not just monetary, intrinsic, aesthetic values that we want to protect.
And the value of our property.
Exactly,
How are you gonna
monetary,
protect that?
exactly. This isn't, we're not taking this lightly by any means.
You've spent a lot of money on it already, right? You mean you bought the property, and
Got
I know
the
that's
property.
gonna go, but then you had an RFP, and you led the contracts, and you're probably up near $1 million on that, aren't you?
I think that was around 800, I think.
Yeah,
So,
you've already spent that much
Yeah.
to get to this point. So you kind of have.
The ball is rolling, but we can't be stopped. We can't keep going. I mean, we do not know. So we're here to provide the best information to our elected officials, who will then make that final decision.
So I have one clarifying question on that. Have you guys defined an off-ramp for this process with all you've invested to date? What is the off-ramp, and what impact does the community input have in deciding whether or not you're going to off-ramp this or force it through?
That's a really good question. And I haven't gotten into the processes. If there was an off-ramp, I'm new to this whole thing too. Learning is we all
Has
go
anybody
along,
else
but
on the team?
Has a final switch been set? Will it cost too much? Will there be a price? I'm not sure.
So here's the credibility challenge that you all need to understand from our perspective, right? Which is, we hear you, this isn't a foregone conclusion, we're not doing anything, yet you can't articulate an off-ramp, and you can't articulate a scenario in which community input would affect your desired path forward. So those two aren't...
So what I would say is that's what the county commissioner hearings are for. And the county commissioners are charged with making decisions like this. The decision has not been finalized.
So perhaps the more accurate thing to tell us then is, we're here to make you feel good and listen for a little bit, but if you want to affect a process, you have to go talk to the commissioners. Because you're not...
So this is a very standard way of engaging the public.
Right, but there's a difference between engagement and helping people get involved in a process that can be changed that reflects input. And you're describing two very different things. One feels very good, and one feels really raw.
You're right.
So I just want to make sure we're accurate on
we
that.
didn't bring you here to feel good. We wanted to learn from you, and you to hear what we have just the idea of, so we all can start moving forward.
What did you learn?
I learned that y'all are not happy about the way this is going down.
Smart people.
So yeah, exactly. I've got a lot of notes that I can put together that will go back to the team, that will be fed up with this process to the higher levels. This will all be written up, and again, we'll move forward. I learned a ton tonight. I thought, when I was brought into this in August, like, compost facility sounds amazing. But I didn't think about neighbors. Now I took a big lap around the facility, took a big drive around this whole property, 115 everything. I totally understand the impacts to your drive. If that truck can't go left, he's gonna go right. I see that. I understand this is your property. It's absolutely beautiful. There's the impacts. I can't imagine living here and thinking about what this means to me. So I'm gonna take a ton out of this tonight. And I will take it back, write it down, and feed it to the team, and feed it on up the ladder. That's what I can do for you.
Doesn't Boulder County own open space on Rocky Flats?
That I don't know.
That's not what
I don't think
No.
that's Jefferson County once you
Jefferson
get over the
County.
hill there.
But in a process question, you said you're going to write this up. And
I'll take the notes I have and provide them to
Is
the
there any
director
of that
level,
that you
board
can share
level.
with us? Your notes?
I would be happy to share what I wrote, and I would be happy to let you all expand on them. So that input that you provide through your online, I've gotten several inquiries. That all stays with the team. That goes through the notes, through the processes. What have we been
Who does
hearing?
it go to next?
This will go through our land use review process, our community planning review process. They're going to ask, what has been the public processes? Can we see the comments you've received? Can we see the answers that you've provided? They're going to want all that. That'll continue to go on up to the Board of County Commissioners. That is a standard practice for me to provide what I'm hearing and what we're saying along the way.
And is there some timing to that? Is there a timeline on?
So it will be when we present, when each board and commission when it goes to them, then there'll be a memo, there'll be they'll get the packet, they'll understand what I've heard, what we've been done, what we've reached, the outreach we've done, and what we're hearing and what we're, what's moving
So do
along.
you have have you been given sort of marching orders on get us this at this point? And do you have a sort of a deadline for public input gathering?
I wanted to get out here and hear from y'all before we start moving forward to get into that board and commissions where, so that's your only, all of a sudden that becomes the one input that y'all have is at a board and commission hearing where you're just 3 minutes in a line. I thought we would all get together tonight.
We're not far from that.
Yeah, we're not far from that. So, but they'll have that input from tonight.
I'm glad
and
we reached out to you.
You'll have that input from tonight.
Check that box.
Yeah, and then you'll get another opportunity to speak directly to them. That's what I'm trying
Are
to
your
do.
meeting
is
notes?
Give more opportunity.
Are your meeting notes going to be in the submittal packet that's going in a couple of days?
Yeah, no, it'll come up before the commissioners or a board and commission hearing. I usually submit everything as a public comment, public participation.
So
I'll
in their pre-submittal pack that's going in on the 12th, you're not going to include any of this.
They will do their own outreach process.
Are they going to extend it beyond the 5 people on Lookout Road?
I believe it's a half mile that they extend there.
The referral process of the special use review, I think it's total like a 35-day process where mailers are sent out. It's based on a radius from property line of 1,500 feet. So that includes,
so this helps
obviously
expand on
half of it's Boulder County farm land over here. The
So
other
we'll
half
get
is
the schedule.
that side.
We'll know schedules for everything.
Think about it.
You'll be hearing from those departments that have our submittals in order for you
So
to
every date, we'll know.
Yes.
In time.
That's
So
even if the
that's
mail
another way
comes
I
out.
will bring you along on that process. I will help bring you along. I mean, continue to talk with me. I've got a stack of cards.
Let's have them.
Okay. Here, start passing. I want to hear and I want to provide input. I don't want this to be hidden at all.
I think that should be expanded on. The 1,500 radius is a joke.
Yeah.
1,500 barely touches my house, and I'm the closest house to this place.
I understand that. It's their process. And I really, we do have only till 6 by public health. They wanted us out of here. So thank you all for coming. I appreciate this.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you very much.
You're very much.
No, and I appreciate it.